Act 1. Introduction. Two buildings, two ideas of what it means to take away a person's freedom. One is built of straight lines, glass, and light, a machine for watching. The other is built of depth, stone, and darkness, a place for disappearing. One says, "We will see you at all times." The other says, "We will make sure no one sees you again." For centuries, the West and the East did not just punish differently. They imagined the very idea of confinement differently, what it was for, what it did to the soul, and who was allowed to witness it. This video on Lipar, we opened two doors, one leading into a philosopher's account of the modern Western prison, the other into the wells, pits, and cages of Persian history and poetry. What we find on each side will change how you think about walls, punishment, and the self. Act 2. The Western Architecture of Punishment. In 1975, the French philosopher Michel Foucault opened his landmark study with a scene almost too brutal to describe: the public execution of Robert-François Damiens, a man convicted of attempting to kill King Louis XV. Foucault's account, drawn from court records, describes flesh torn with pincers, molten lead poured into wounds, the body finally pulled apart by horses in front of a crowd. The body of the condemned man is the site upon which the vengeance of the sovereign is applied. This is the argument at the heart of Discipline and Punish, the birth of the prison. Foucault's 1975 study, translated into English in 1977, which remains one of the most influential accounts of how Western punishment changed. For most of European history, punishment was a public spectacle. The point was not correction, it was demonstration. The sovereign's power had been wounded by the crime, and it had to be restored, visibly, on the body of the criminal. Then, within less than a century, something changed. Executions moved behind walls. Punishment stopped being a performance for the crowd and became a private, administrative matter. In its place rose a new architecture, literally. The English philosopher Jeremy Bentham designed a prison called the Panopticon, a circular building with a central watchtower from which a single guard could observe every cell without the prisoners ever knowing if they were being watched at any given moment. Foucault took Bentham's blueprint and turned it into a metaphor for an entire civilization. The point of the Panopticon was never really the tower. It was what happened inside the prisoner's mind. The moment a person begins to police themselves simply because they might be seen. He who is subjected to a field of visibility and who knows it assumes responsibility for the constraints of power. He makes them play spontaneously upon himself. This is what Foucault called discipline, power that no longer needs to torture the body in public because it has learned to shape the body and mind quietly, continuously, from the inside. The modern prison, the modern school, the modern factory, even the modern hospital, all of them, Foucault argued, are built on this same logic of constant, internalized visibility. So the Western prison, in its most influential philosophical account, is a machine for producing a certain kind of subject, visible, observed, self-correcting. Its power lies in light, the impossibility of hiding. Now let's cross a very different threshold. Act 3. The Persian idea of the pit and the well. Long before Bentham ever drew a circular tower, Persian history and literature had already built a philosophy of confinement, but it looked almost nothing like the West's. Historically, the Achaemenid and Sasanian courts, and later the Safavid and Qajar dynasties, rarely treated imprisonment as public correction. Confinement was tied to the intimate, dangerous world of court politics. Princes blinded and hidden away to remove them from succession. Rivals disappeared into pits and fortress cells, not to be seen punished, but to be unseen entirely. Where the Western scaffold demanded a crowd, the Persian dungeon often demanded silence and disappearance. Concealment, not spectacle, was the point. This idea runs even deeper in Persian literature. In Ferdowsi's Shahnameh, The hero Bijan is drugged, bound, and cast into a deep, sealed pit by order of Afrasiab, the king of Turan, the Bijan, the pit of Bijan. He is not displayed to a crowd. He disappears from the world entirely, sealed beneath a massive stone, and left to a fate that only the intervention of the hero Rostam, guided by magic and loyalty, can undo. Notice what the pit means here. It is not an instrument of civic order. It is a trial, a test of fate, loyalty, and heroic destiny. Bijan's imprisonment is not the end of his story. It is the dark middle of it, the place from which rescue and honor emerge. The same structure echoes through the story of Yusuf, Joseph, cast into a well by his brothers before his long trial in Egypt. In both the Quranic and biblical traditions, and deeply embedded in Persian devotional and literary retellings, the well is not a punishment for a crime Yusuf committed. It is the site of an unjust confinement that becomes, paradoxically, the beginning of purification and destiny. The pit strips a person down before it lifts them up, and then Persian literature turns the pit inward. In Rumi's Masnavi, the very first lines are the song of the reed, the neigh, cut from its reed bed, crying with longing to return to where it came from. The reed's hollow body, forced into song only by being cut and pierced, becomes Rumi's image for the human soul. Separated from the divine, confined within the body and the material world, aching for a home it can only reach through spiritual discipline. Hafez takes up the same image in his ghazals, the caged bird, Qafaz, whose wings remember a sky it has never touched. Here, imprisonment is not political and not even historical. It is metaphysical. The soul itself is the prisoner, and the body, even freedom itself in the ordinary sense, is the cage. So where the Western tradition, at least in Foucault's account, moves from the spectacle of the tortured body to the discipline of the watch body, the Persian tradition moves from the historical pit and the political dungeon straight into the metaphysical cage, the soul's confinement within matter and self. Act 4. Comparative synthesis. Let's place these two worlds side by side. The Western prison, as Foucault describes it, is built on visibility. Its power depends on being seen, or on the prisoner's uncertainty about whether they are being seen. The Persian prison, from the Bijan to the political dungeons of the Safavid court, is built on concealment. Its power depends on the prisoner disappearing entirely from the world's sight. The Western prison aims at correction, reshaping the criminal into a disciplined, self-regulating subject who can, in principle, re-enter society. The Persian pit and well, in their literary form, aim at trial, testing a hero's or a soul's endurance, with release coming not through behavioral reform, but through rescue, destiny, or spiritual purification. The Western model, in Foucault's reading, is ultimately about secular administrative power, the state, the institution, the impersonal machinery of discipline. The Persian model is entangled with court intrigue and the sacred, princes and rivals hidden away by dynastic politics on one hand, and on the other, Rumi's and Hafez's transformation of the prison into a purely spiritual condition, answerable not to any earthly institution, but to the soul's distance from the divine. And perhaps most tellingly, the Western prisoner in Foucault's account becomes an individual, isolated, catalogued, observed as a case. The Persian prisoner, in the Shahnameh and in the Yusuf tradition, remains part of a narrative of destiny. Their suffering is never just their own. It is a chapter in a larger story that the reader already knows will resolve. Two civilizations, two very different answers to the same question. What does it mean to take a person out of the world? One answers with light and the clinic. The other answers with depth, silence, and the soul. Act 5. Conclusion. Perhaps that is the real difference the two traditions reveal. The West built a prison to watch the body, Persian literature and history built a prison to test the soul, and then through Rumi and Hafez, quietly suggested that the truest prison was never made of stone at all. The reed still remembers the reed bed. The bird in the cage still remembers a sky it has never touched. And somewhere between Foucault's Tower of Glass and Ferdowsi's Pit of Stone, we are left with a single, uncomfortable question, one worth carrying with you after this episode ends. Which cage are you in? And can you even see its walls? Thank you for watching Lipar, where history, philosophy, and the human story meet. If this episode moved you, subscribe, like, and drop your comment, and join us next time as we open another door into the past.